One of the topics that I've been asked about most over the years, and oftentimes with some secrecy or some mystery or even controversy, is that of the Dead Sea Scrolls. What they are, how they've come to us, what they say. And in this series, we'll be going through what exactly the Dead Sea Scrolls are, the community that created them, the details that they relate to us, and what they reveal to us about our own faith and about ancient history. In latter videos, we'll go into detail into these documents and into this ancient community. But in this video, we'll be doing an overview of how these documents were discovered and what they contain. So thank you for joining us in this first of this series on the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls, in brief, are a collection of ancient manuscripts that were discovered in the middle of the 20th century, right off of the northwest shores of the Dead Sea. Hence, they've got their name, the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is an arid climate. The Dead Sea is rather inhospitable, being 7 to 8 times as salty as ocean water. And altogether, it's a hot, extremely dry area presently. These were found in 11 caves nearby an ancient site called Khirbet Qumran, and so these scrolls are sometimes referred to as the Qumran Scrolls as well. The scrolls were discovered first by this dude. This dude's a champion. He was a Bedouin shepherd who, together with his cousin and a friend, first found these ancient manuscripts tucked away in one of these caves. There are multiple stories as to how they were originally found, the most popular being that he was in search of one of his flock, and he threw a rock up into the hillside to chase it down, and a rock flew into one of these caves where he heard a shattering. The next day, he and his companions went on up and discovered a set of ancient pots. Most of them were empty or filled with dirt, but one of them held several scrolls of ancient parchment. Over the next several months, they explored additional caves and found additional documents hidden among them. And thereafter, they attempted to sell them, mostly in Jerusalem, to a variety of scholars, of merchants, of collectors, of religious leaders, and so forth. And this was the beginning of the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. While these first manuscripts were doubted as to their authenticity, soon it was recognized by some experts that these very possibly were genuine ancient manuscripts. Unfortunately, excavation was delayed by the onset of the Arab-Israeli War in 1948. But starting in 1849 and continuing through 1956, teams of experts, as well as Bedouin herdsmen, searched through hundreds of these caves in this surrounding Dead Sea area and eventually found 11 caves that contained manuscripts. Now, over this period, roughly 25,000 bits of manuscripts were found. Most of them were very small, some as small as a fingertip, and only relatively few, a little less than a dozen, were actually full scrolls containing essentially entire ancient documents. These scraps were carefully collected and sorted and are still being put together thanks to advances in imaging technology. A lot of ancient writing that was either blackened over with time or has been worn away has been recovered from these documents, and experts are still to this day piecing these parts together and uncovering more and more as time goes by. These portions of manuscripts have been carefully assembled into approximately 1,000 different ancient documents, and more are still being discovered as additional discoveries in 86 and 93 and even as recently as 2017 continue to reveal artifacts from this area. Through closely examining these documents, by considering the archaeology of the caves in the surrounding area, of studying the paleography, or the ancient writing, or the style of the writing involved, the materials of the paper and of the ink, and also utilizing radiocarbon dating, experts have dated these documents from roughly 300 BC to 180. This is so significant and has been regarded as probably the greatest archaeological discovery of the 20th century because most ancient documents, especially pertaining to the Bible, are much older than this. For example, the oldest fully complete Hebrew scripture that we have is the Codex Leningradensis, which was composed estimated at 1008 AD. These fragments date over 1,000 years before that, to before the time of Christ himself, and give us a glimpse of what the Hebrew Scriptures were like 1,000 years prior. Moreover, within this collection of these Dead Sea Scrolls, there are portions of every Old Testament book, except for Esther, and my apologies if you happen to really like Esther, and even an entire copy of the book of Isaiah, known as the Great Isaiah Scroll. And so this discovery had a huge impact on how we understood the Scriptures, and also into how we understood how these were used and lived out in some portions of the ancient world. These Dead Sea Scrolls can generally be categorized into three portions. The first is, as mentioned, biblical texts. These comprise about 40% of the documents, are portions, sometimes multiple copies, of each of the books of the Old Testament, excepting Esther. There are, in this collection, no New Testament books. There's no mention of Jesus among them. This is a collection of Hebrew texts. This was a Jewish community, and indeed, most of these books are written and recorded in Hebrew. The second section can be categorized as sectarian scrolls. These are documents that pertain to the particular life of this community. There is a community rule scroll that discusses the particular requirements for entry into the community, of long lists of disciplines for members, generally the prescriptions for how community life is to be held. There's also the scroll of the War of the Sons of Light against the Sons of Darkness, a war manual / apocalyptic text about an expected upcoming battle and how they are to participate in it. There is commentary on biblical books. There is what's known as the Temple Scroll, and each of these within this portion discuss the particular beliefs, the experiences, and the apocalyptic expectations of this community of Qumran. And there is in the third portion collections of books that are copies of the literary heritage of the period. These are mostly religious in nature, but are not books that are included in the Bible. There are some non-canonical books, such as the Book of Enoch or the Wisdom of Sirach. There is some deuterocanonical material, such as the Book of Tobit. There is some additional psalms, some alternate tellings of biblical stories, of spiritual experiences of interacting with angels. There's a wide variety of other spiritual religious material that was likely important to this community and that was part of the literary heritage of this time. These scrolls are mostly written in Hebrew. Some are written in Aramaic and a few in Greek, and most are composed on parchment, with some on papyrus, and one on copper, a treasure map that has inspired no few number of treasure hunts in the area. And so this is the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they can be found online, at least those that have been translated and published to this point, at a link below. You can find it in the description below, and read through everything that's been found and translated. But the controversy and sensationalism around them was due to their fragmented nature and the very careful method by which they've been pieced together and translated. After first being found, these documents traded hands a number of times, and some traveled, because of the conflict in the area, outside of the country to Lebanon, and some even made it as far as the United States as they changed hands. And it was some years before they were all collected together again. And there is still a question whether there are outstanding documents being held by collectors or individuals or have been lost. This, together with no small number of forgeries that have had to be weeded out. This all combined with the fact that only a few number of people are allowed access to handle these documents has led to a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories through the years. But fortunately, again, many of these documents are published and available, and many of these Dead Sea Scrolls are on display in the Shrine of the Book at the Israel Museum at Jerusalem and are publicly available for viewing in person today. So this is a brief overview of the history, the discovery, and the contents of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And in the coming videos, we're going to go into these documents in closer detail to learn more about what they contain and about the community that produced them. And in the next video in this series, we will look closely at the book of the War of the Sons of Light against the Sons of Darkness and explore what this tells us about this ancient community of Qumran. So thanks for joining us today, and any suggestions, comments, and any questions would be very welcome, and we'll try to incorporate those into future videos in this series. So thanks again, and God bless you all this day.